If you listen closely to the desert just after the heat has folded itself into the first hush of night, you might notice that the sand stops, feeling like ground, and starts behaving like a hushed sea drifting beneath the caravan's soft footfalls. Its edge, rubbed with beeswax to fend off desert damp, holds tiny ink notches marking degrees in cramped Arabic numerals. None of those numerals matters to the camels chewing cud nearby or to the dozing guards. Yet the quadrant squeak is dearer to the caravan master than any oath. Each package approximates the size of a cradled infant and must weigh no more than a certain number of mythicals to satisfy tax clerks at Bukhara Gate. The tender scale is a yoke with 2 copper pans, suspended from an iron hook hammered into a poplar pole planted upright in a bucket of hardened pitch. Into one pan he sets a bale. Into the other, small lead discs stamped with crescent moons. The clock's bulb chambers bubble with ground quartz grains, tinted with saffron to catch lamplight. One turning equals 1/3 of a watch, or thereabouts. The sands run slower on humid nights, but desert humidity seldom blunders high enough to care. Pages smoothed by balm resist cold dew. Still, scribes smear extra film along bottom edges. They sleep with quills tied to wrists by silk thread to avoid losing them in sand if startled. Rope phrase seeking jawless splicing thumb, and tiny saffron grains meeting glass bulb with hush equal to ankle-high tide. Let your breathing become camel footfalls. Inhale counting 4 steps, exhale counting 4. Let your pulse track sand clocks, amber trickle until dunes of thought smooth themselves under star glow, and dawn finds you wrapped not in silk veil but in ledger quiet dreams. Quails drape like spider legs, but sleepers find comfort in their tug. Even dreams seem to adore logistic detail. One merchant mutters bail counts in slumber, his breath of fate rustle against silk wrap. When sands vanish into lower bulb, the caravan master rotates the clock, marking shift change. He records flip count on a wax tablet, small stylus strokes. Later, tablets scraped clean and reused. Wax shows faint palimpsest of older counts, layering hours like onion skins of memory. He adds discs one by one, stopping when beam tilts neither right nor left, but hovers in a polite standoff. Each is fitted with knee pads patches of thick felt stitched into loops. Pads prevent abrasion when camel folds limbs for rest. The felt, cut from recycled rugs, smells faintly of patchouli and wood smoke. Before each march, handler sprinkles pads with villainy dust-powdered mustard seed and aloe-deterring desert mites. He shakes exactly 4 pinches per pad, tapping pad twice afterward to embed grains. Should pinch scatter onto sand, he draws a finger through spill, marking sorry in Persian script. A light-hearted superstition claiming mites can read apologies and thus forgive insult of lost dust. Each disc weighs 1 mythcal. No disc shows decimals because the tender does not trust fractions at dusk. If the bale demands too many discs, the tender unties its cotton cord, removes 1 layer of silk, reties with the practiced flourish of a confectioner, and stows the trimmed layer in a side satchel labeled overflow. But never suspect night cook's side ledger or Gilo's left-leaning splice notes. They will marvel at camel knee pads preserved under salt crusts, still smelling faintly of patchouli, and wonder why apology scribbles in Persian appear near scattered mustard residue at oasis sites. Paper scholars will debate whether sleep ledgers should count as historiography or bedtime arithmetic. None will ask dessert for its opinion. Ledger entry, veil 7 at discs 9, overflow 1/4 layer note, satin stripe. This level of detail would bore any customs officer into a welcome trance, which is precisely the point. He places the instrument to his cheek, lets his pulse calm to match the far-off hum of country silence. He fills iron-bellied kettle with water, scooped by goat-skin bucket, previously judged free of sand grains, coarser than pepper. Into the firebox he feeds dried camel dung, puck-shaped and odorless once lit. Flames rise lazy, coaxing water to emit sighs. The first sigh tells him the metal is remembering warmth. The second means water approaches steam. At the third sigh, he removes kettle from flame and sets it atop a flat stone to settle. He will not brew tonight too early in rotation, but the record must show water warmed to sigh 3 at watch hour 1. He scribbles this on a palm-sized slate kept for boiler data. The slate's surface carries faint scratches tracing months of sigh counts, a ghostly cardiogram of kettle behavior, and sights along the notch seeking Polaris, or since we are south of many latitudes seeking. Kokab, the lesser but still persuasive pointer, 37 has no mystical basis. Someone generations earlier noted that number of paces formed a convenient diamond perimeter around 8 bedrolls and 2 camels. Guards carry reed whistles to signal shift change, but no one blows them above whisper. Instead, they tuck whistle between lips and exhale with minimal force, producing a sound like a cricket too shy to chirp. The whistle's internal note-thin sliver of palm wood requires nightly check for cracks. No crack longer than a sesame seed tolerated. Cracked nodes replaced at once, old ones tossed into fire to avoid confusing inventory. There is a ledger for whistle nodes, of course, kept by the same scribe recording star angles. He writes on small sheets of birch bark wrapped in lambskin. His script tilts right, balancing Jalil's left-leaning rope entries. Symmetry suits him. When the star kisses the angled arm, he whispers a single number to his ledger scribe. The scribe nods dips reed pen into lamp black, ink mixed with goat tallow for smoothness, and records the angle to the half degree, even though everyone involved suspects sand dunes will shift just enough by dawn to make tonight's number politely obsolete. That sensation, the almost tidal sway of grains and ounces, the ideal moment for the star reader to unfold his battered wooden quadrant and begin the nightly ceremony of alignment. Tonight, our first step along a sleepy silk road, we will travel no farther than the length of a camel tether, yet we will weigh silk bales against pocket-sized sand clocks, measure camel strides and heartbeats, and tilt our heads just enough to let the compass star rest gently on the quadrant's tiny horizon line. No alarms, no blazing fires, only the quiet bureaucracy of navigation that allowed merchants to wander through a landscape so featureless it feels designed for napping. The quadrant itself is unimpressive. 2 cedar arms pinned by a brass rivet that squeaks like a door someone forgot to oil. Camels stand at patient ease during this star reading. Each animal's rope ties to the next, forming a quiet chain that sags like laundry over a still courtyard. Ropes are braided from goat hair harvested 3 caravans ago and twisted into 2-ply cord. The braid is intentionally uneven thicker near the led camel, halter and slimmer near the rear, because tension at the front has a habit of nibbling cord. Every evening, a handler named Jalil runs thumb and forefinger along each braid, feeling for frays. When he finds one, he pulls a small spool of matching hair from his sash, splices a new twist, and rolls it tight with a bone shuttle carved from scrap juniper. He trims loose fibers with an ember-heated knife, whose edge has never once glinted in daylight. Indeed, the knife is only unsheathed after dusk, believing darkness steadies the hand. Jalil logs each splice in a notebook bound in cracked sheepskin, pages spotted with grease from date cakes. His handwriting leans left and always ends with a tiny dot shaped like a sleeping lark. Nearby, the bale tenders weigh silk packages that wear dusty muslin wrappings. All the while, the night cook tends the samovar, although no guest insists on tea. Security matters too, though the methods rarely change. 4 guards pace perimeter, each tasked with counting 37 steps before turning. Timekeeping floats above all operations, anchored by a sand clock housed in a dwarfish copper frame. Camels chew cut still, huffing soft sighs. As night thins, merchants bedroll beside their bales, sliding ledgers under necks like thin pillows. Future archivists will scrape copper pan surfaces to tuck trace mythical weight impressions. They will infer careful weighing. So now, as your own night beckons calm, Imagine the cedar quadrant squeaking once his cock-up settles into its notch. Long before the caravan's bronze gong dares to blink into dawn, there is a quieter gong, almost imaginary, created by the first drop of boiling water, landing inside a clay teapot whose walls have already memorized centuries of camel sway rhythms. The caravanserai tea steward calls that drop the key, because once it strikes, every subsequent motion clicks effortlessly into its fitting groove. The weighing of leaves, the timing of bubbles, the counting of cup rims chipped by past journeys. The walls bear a turquoise glaze chipped unevenly, and each chip hosts tiny worlds where dust settles, forming micro dunes that the steward brushes away every waxing crescent. Tonight, he arrives with broom woven from date palm fronds, sweeping edges in arcs that track the planets. Mercury for the first sweep, tight, quick, Venus slightly wider. By Mars, he's humming quiet, tuneless syllables. They arrived compressed in bamboo tubes sealed with beeswax. Steward shaves off ribbons using a paring knife sharpened on riverside sandstone, so fine it polishes more than cuts. He weighs ribbons on a balance scale identical to the silk bale scale of episode 1, but smaller. Pans of hammered silver the thickness of fingernail. He fills until water kisses inner rim just below spout arch, covers pot with lid whose knob is turquoise to match wall glaze. Each porcelain cup sports thin blue peony band. Cracks seldom align, making puzzle for observant drinkers. Steward pre-rinses cups with boiled water, swirl 3 turns each, then empties onto same pebble path section to equalize hiss pattern. Too sharp a hiss means cups still cool. Gentle hiss tonight, perfect. He adjusts lid micro gap width of lentil to let volatile oils escape without scalding leaves. Pitcher wears old chip unlit. Steward positions chip facing himself to avoid guest sightlines. He logs fuel use. Char pieces consume 10 walnuts worth. Puff count 15. Double stage reached after sandglass half run. They will test residue, find traces of apricot char and goat tallow soot, confirming nightly hum of routine long after voices faded. Let 108 heartbeats guide your breathing. Inhale, gently counting 9. Exhale, 9, repeat, until mind rotates quarter turn. Clarity amber, lip lentil gap invites calm. Weave the scarf of awareness across 7 cups. Leave final drumbeat in pitcher for dreams, and settle under turquoise glaze of a sky preparing to lighten, but not just yet. All scribbles appear in palm-sized ledger, smelling faintly of apricot wood smoke. He fills pitcher until meniscus crowns just shy of overflow, then lifts to eye, checking clarity. Sip gap measured, lips part, close. Breathe through nose once, then second sip deeper. They compliment tea, calling it shade and dune. Steward bows, notes remark in mental log. Later pen it under epithets. He keeps column tallying which metaphors recur. Shade and dune now stands at 4, tied with moon behind silk. Should tea show cloudiness thicker than lamp flame aura, leaves steeped too long. Tonight clarity near amber window pane pass. Leaves slide, making faint thud. He dusts pot exterior with goat hair brush, returns pot to shelf where 16 other pots rest, ordered by spout length and clay hue. Each pot underside marked with small dot count. Today's sparrow pot has 5, meaning autumn acquisition 5 years old. First steep lasts 108 heartbeats. Steward feels pulse on neck, eyes half closed. At cup's halfway mark, he shifts to next, returning in micro doses to level volumes until each cup brims equal. This multi-pass pouring known as weaving the scarf. His wrist circles so precisely it could lull him off. He leaves final dribble in pitcher bottom to honor notion that last sip carries slumber dust. He pours that dribble into small basins set aside for ancestors, steam curling into shape like archaic script for dream. At 54 beats, he rotates pot a quarter turn, ensuring leaf raft doesn't jam spout. Ledger later marks are at HB 54 standard. Counterweights are bronze beads. Each bead equals 1 hazel weight. Tonight's brew requires 6 hazels for pot-sized sparrow, indicated by its spout shorter than Steward's thumb. He adds a 7th bead for what he calls drowsy insurance, then removes half a bead. There is such a thing, sliced neatly because the moon wanes and bitter leaves intensify under wane phases. Ledger entry, LW 6.5, moon adjusted. His ledger, bound in goatskin, lists these sweeps by celestial shorthand: M1, V1, Ma1, charcoal pieces sized by walnut comparison. Any piece larger broken with tiny brass hammer reserved for that sole job, head shaped like pomegranate. Fire stirs with bellows made of goat skin and cedar nozzle. Steward counts 15 soft puffs. Puff number 8 always feels rebellious, wanting to roar, but he lowers nozzle, pacifying flame. When tiny bubbles called crab eyes appear, he lifts kettle and tips water into the waiting clay teapot, pre-warmed by a swirl of hot water already. Discarded onto pebble pathway, pebbles hiss approvingly. Underneath, in smaller script, he notes whether dust smelled more of cumin or sandalwood. Tonight, sandalwood prevails, likely from last week's spice caravan. Tonight, our second, still unhurried leg along the sleepy Silk Road. We will travel no farther than the distance between kettle and cup. Yet we will measure spout angles and sesame seed units, chart steam wisps that drift like faint calligraphy over the courtyard, and learn exactly how many heartbeats remain polite between the first pour and the second. Nothing fierce, nothing hurried, just the mild bureaucracy of tea that lulls traders, guards, and even feral cats into soft-eyed equilibrium. The tea house sits tucked in the caravanserai's northeast corner, chosen because dawn light reaches its lintel last, granting steam a chance to show delicate against lingering starlight. Focus turns to water. Source is a shallow cistern fed by gallery aqueduct. Cistern water tastes faintly of gypsum good for neutralizing tannins, the steward insists. He fills an unglazed jar called an abacos, dipped by rope hoist that creaks exactly twice, once on descent, once on ascent. If it creaks 3 times, rope fibers demand beeswax rub. He logs creak count, 2 satisfactory. Water sits on a cedar bench, letting sediment drop. Steward times settling with a sand glass, whose grains were dyed rust red, using safflower petals. Grains fall for 7 breaths. He counts slowly, making sure each exhale lasts longer than previous. When glass empties, he pours water through folded silk strainer, tassel trimmed so threads never dip. Strainer catches any daredevil gnat attracted by lantern glow. Next come tea leaves, green curls from the mountains north of Fergana Valley. The kettle cast iron, belly etched with wave motifs, rests over a brazier stoked by apricot wood charcoal. The first pour, that key drop, seems ceremonial but serves temperature gauge. If drop sizzles loud, pot too hot. Tonight it whispers, ideal. Cups await on lacquered tray, painted cinnabar, ringed by faint hairline cracks like old riverbeds. He decants the tea into fairness pitcher glass cylinder etched with 8 longevity symbols. Pouring sequence begins with westernmost cup, rotates sunwise. He tilts pitcher gradually, letting stream fall pencil thin. Guests, 2 spice merchants, 1 astrologer, and a sleepy guard lift cups with both hands, elbows tucked, first sip tiny. Spent leaves not discarded. He tips them into woven basket mixed with camel dung, later to become mild compost for caravanserai courtyard fig. Kettle receives thaw of cold water to prevent iron fatigue. Many years hence, archaeologists will unearth similar teapots in caravanserai ruins, examine lid lintel gaps, puzzle at half-bead weights, and wonder who cracked lip of fairness pitcher. So, as your own kettle of thoughts quiets, imagine apricot embers mellowing, saffron-tinted sand glass sighing, and tea leaves swirling like very lazy dust devils in clay belly. Long before any merchant dreams of profit, and well before the cook of samovar utters its first crab-eye sigh, an almost invisible concertmaster wakes to tend something few travelers ever notice. The strings of a travel-worn barbat lute every caravan stop adds another patch, creating a subtle relief map hinting at whole deserts traveled. Each string is sheep gut scraped, twisted, and stretched during last waxing quarter. They rest dusted in powdered myrtle leaves to shoo away weevils with more curiosity than sense. Furret passes each string through his fingers, feeling for knots too raised or flat spots too thin. Layla dislodges grit with porcupine quill dipped in dew. Then she drops a mustard seed inside, shakes, listens again. Lantern trimmed low, hung on nail level with fretboard. He aligns shadow of peg against carved rosette pattern, but performance not aim. He now dampens strings with cloth and sets lute aside for a final pitch. Check at dawn when wood temperature rose few degrees. Morning retune, easier than mid-March chaos. When shadow edge touches third rosette petal, he plucks. If note wavers below lantern hum half step, peg receives quarter twist. He knots pouch with triple surgeon's knot, labels date by carving numeral into tiny seer sliver, threading sliver through knot loops. Armin declines, but he dips cloth in water skin, wipes lute face gently. They will examine camel harness bells excavated near caravan wells, some containing mustard seeds fossilized to peppercorn shade, puzzling at purpose. One fragment of goatskin ledger reveals pip tube counts. Scholars propose musical coding. They miss comfort purpose but sense rhythm, and uses last dampness to moisten fingertip before writing strings and bells dream ready on small wax tablet. He blows tablet cool, slips into pocket. Cedar scent discourages moths. Knot loops count forms part of inventory. Ledger carries column, pouches hanging, now 37. He tunes first string to high. C, though absolute pitch irrelevant here, and tunes remaining strings via harmonic nodes. Press lightly a finger width from bridge. Harmonics shimmer faint, near inaudible to untrained ear, perfect for not waking merchants. Each harmonic gets name. First glassworm, second mothwing, third owl feather. He records whether each appears crisp. Tonight glassworm and mothwing crisp, owl feather fuzzy. He cleans fret beneath fuzzy by wiping with goat hair brush. Dust falls like cinnamon. Retest crisp achieved. Ledger update, all shimmer. Mustard seeds lend fresh click, extending town life. She counts seeds employed, 7 tonight. Those whose bronze mouth edges chip too deeply retire. Layla sets them on cedar board beside tiny ink tag reading honor, but just enough to reassure caravan master that stride remains constant. Camels identify their own bells. A swapped bell might cause one to step uneven. To swap test, Layla deliberately reverses 2 bells on lead camel, watches ear flick. Ear flick equals protest. She returns bells, ear settles. She notes lead camel protest reversal memory good. Retired bells later melt into new forms, perhaps talisman pendants. Desert lives circular. If he finds one, he marks the flaw with charcoal and sets string aside for lower priority instruments. Tonight, only one flaw appears, a faint thinning the width of eyelash. Ledger remarked, that 4B pale. The flawed string will become bracelet for lucky child and next oasis, so nothing wasted. The concertmaster, called Armin, though nobody minds if you forget it, begins by removing the instrument from its quilted wrap. Pegs, although asymmetric, each wear a shallow groove burnt by earlier friction. The groove helps string seat without creeping. Each bell is a cast bronze sphere, no larger than plum, slitted for voice and polished daily with cloth dipped in vinegar salt paste. She removes each bell via bone pick, sliding under leather lacing, careful not to shift camel's sleeping posture. Camels hardly stir. They have grown used to nocturnal jewelry adjustments. Bells deposit onto tray, producing cascade of dull clinks like rain on awning, never clang. Layla separates bells by timbre. Some give pip, others toque, one rare hush. She tests by shaking bell next to ear while blocking opposite ear with elbow, capturing subtlety. Ledger column lists Pip equals 25, Took equals 18, Hush equals 3 this evening. He turns Peg slowly, listening for pitch ascend toward what he calls lantern hum, roughly one tone lower than full pitch. He stops there because strings must acclimate gradually to desert night chill. He repeats process for remaining strings, always resting 2 breaths between turns to allow fibers to remember tension. 2 breaths measured by counting camel exhalations drifting from courtyard to night. Camels breathe slow. So strings tighten slower, ledger clocks, camel pace 13 in min. That wrap smells faintly of cumin and lamp oil, 2 fragrances the wood seems to drink gratefully. Armin sets the lute across his knees and loosens each tuning peg exactly a quarter turn, listening for the gut strings to sag into a pitch he names Sleeping Serpent. He tests pitch by plucking lightly with his thumbnail, the nail buffed with a shard of sandstone until smooth as old soap. When all 6 strings dangle loose, he breathes onto them warm vapor, helping gut relax, and wipes them with cloth infused with tiny smear of goat. Tallow balm saved from episode 9. Ledger note, strings kissed and oiled, serpent lies. And the small, equally temperamental bells woven into each camel's felt harness. He insists that without both sets of instruments tuned to the same sleepy heartbeat, no caravan can claim a truly uneventful march. Tonight, our 3rd drowsy stride along the Silk Road. We will travel no farther than the distance between his calloused thumb and the camel's velvet muzzle. Yet we will measure horsehair thickness in grain of sand quanta. Record bell timbre using onomatopoeias unpronounceable to anyone still fully awake. And time the soft twang of gut strings against shadows cast by a lantern dimmed on purpose. Nothing urgent, nothing heroic. Just the carefully padded muffling that keeps dawn from stubbing its toe on discord. The barbat itself carries more repairs than original timber. The pear-shaped body walnut once, now partly cedar patches, bears hairline cracks, filled with a paste of ground apricot kernel and raw silk fiber. Meanwhile, an apprentice named Farid unspools replacement strings from a reed cylinder. Armin selects the first replacement, threads it through small rosewood birch hole, draws it up to peg. While strings settle, bellkeeper Layla appears with wicker tray bearing harness bells. Faulty bells, those whose tongues where thin or cavity collects grit, undergo rehabilitation. Back to instrument, Armin now begins fine-tuning. He strums slowly, letting chords float into courtyard where sleeping guards dream might borrow them. Layla returns bells to harnesses. Order matters. Pip, took in alternating patterns so camel steps create counter rhythm too bland to distract. Finally, apprentice Farid composes string leftovers into tight coil, seals inside cloth pouch dusted with thyme powder to keep away rot. Moon has climbed a fist in half. Water cellars drift by offering sip. Historians centuries later will find worn barbat pieces in desert graves. Gut strings long decayed, but tuning pegs show repetitive wear grooves, exactly quarter turn apart. So, as your own night grows still, imagine gut strings stretching to sleeping serpent pitch, camel bells sorted pip to hush, and lantern shadows sliding to 3rd rosette petal. Some mornings saunter into Samarkand as though they have nowhere else to be. And this is precisely the pace preferred by the dome polishers who work atop the city as famous turquoise roofs. Each glazed tile is no larger than a fig leaf, but there are thousands. Each cut centuries ago from clay mixed with ground quartz, copper filings, and a whisper of cobalt. Over generations, tiles shift microscopically. The polisher's ledger tracks these shifts with columns titled Sunside Creep and Moonside Sigh. Tonight, his goal is not profound restoration, just a routine wipe to remove desert grit so that sunlight may later bounce politely into courtyards, where merchants compare spice moisture by fingertip. Rings themselves cataloged in older books. Several display pocked surfaces shaped like crescent moons, evidence of hail from forgotten winters. The men kneel on wool pads cut from camel blankets retired last season. Wool keeps joints quiet, also prevents unpolished tile from squealing under knee. Droplets matter. If too many land before polishing area dries, streak lines emerge. Ramet signals handler with small bronze mirror flash. Handler adjusts pot lid, reducing steam. Ledger margin hosts doodle of teapot with closed lid. Universal shorthand for steam calmed. Ramet sniffs to gauge tannin spent. He judges mixture ready to join die maker's compost. Basin lowered via pulley. Safety sashes unknotted, coil slowly to avoid metal clink. Papers describe synergy between hospitality and maintenance. Footnotes cite ledgers referencing sleeping sparrow cloth weight, but express confusion over hush murmur scale. Let your breath rise for stroke, rotate cloth. Fall for stroke, counting arcs until bead glides final knot. Picture tassel of pulley rope swaying once and settling, pigeons balancing on turquoise glass, and dawn deciding nothing needs haste this day. Not light, not you. They guess noise control for prayers, never suspect milk curdle superstition. Ladders descended rung by rung, squeak logged mental but forgiven daylight. Squeals unacceptable this hour because T-Story below is still coaxing his samovar to crab eye bubble and claims any sudden squeak curdles milk. The polishers believe him enough to move slowly. At 133 arcs, Rama examines cloth saturation reached squirrel weight, heavy for wrist. Water beads, then slides in rivulets, carrying soot residue down dome. Apprentice below guides water to gutter using brush cut from date palm husks bound with silk thread. Gutters feed cistern again after sand filtering. Closed loop calm. He exchanges with fresh pad from basin worm near lantern. Clocks arcs to 144 exactly as sun's rim appears between minaret and caravan gate. Light glances across tiles and leaps outward like child skipping stones, bounce after bounce. Ramet smiles, hush audible. If dawn hurried, even a little, the polishers would forever be squinting at stubborn streaks, missing the moment when first light slides over tile like honey on a warm plate. Formula: 1 ladle of warm water from cistern, 2 spoonfuls of leftover tea leaves. Each arc covers 3 tiles crosswise, 2 tiles downward. Samarkand pigeons gather along dome ridges, testing fresh surface with claws. Tiles hold. Aziz draws final ledger line. Blue dome, east stripe bright, pigeon-proof. He adds small swirl marking wind direction calm. After stroke, cloth rotates 90 degrees to present fresh side. Cycle repeats. Ledger assistant, a teen named Aziz, counts arcs by sliding brass bead along string. One side of bead cord colored indigo, other copper. When bead completes string, that section of dome done. Tonight they expect 144 arcs. First hour yields 19. Aziz logs 19 arcs. Cloth fibers shed 4 filaments. Mixture temperature drops 2 finger breaths. And 1 tile corner reveals hairline crack shaped like swallowtail. Crack receives dab of goat tallow balm mixed with glass dust, smoothing gap until inspection crew can return with full repair kit, and a thumb cap of pomegranate peel ash for polish. They stir with reed whisk until mixture blushes faint russet. A cloth of woven hemp warp threads dyed with walnut husk, weft left raw serves as brush. Each cloth square measures the width of 4 joined fingertips, determined generations ago to align with average tile seam spacing. Ramet folds cloth in thirds, creating pillow pad. He dips, lets mixture saturate to weight he calls sleeping sparrow, meaning heavy enough to settle but light enough to lift with one hand. Tonight our 4th unhurried pause along the Silk Road, we will arrive with the caravan. Just before that lazy gold appears climb scaffolds, built more of faith than geometry. Each rung is a cedar dowel, its underside branded with a numeral showing manufacturing year. The lead polisher, Ramit, grips each rung lightly, verifying dowel number 38 still resists flex. Ledger note: ladder A rungs 117 firm, 18 squeak minimal. Squeak rating uses scale of hush, murmur, murmur plus, and gossip. Rung 18 rates murmur. Ramit chalks tiny mim beside brand, so carpenters will shave it tomorrow. And eavesdrop on the ledger entries, noting how many brush bristles surrendered to the abrasive patience of blue glaze. No alarms, no trumpets, only wool-wrapped feet padding along brick ribs, carrying buckets of tea-scented rinse water that double as hand warmers in the high dawn breeze. The dome in question belongs to a caravanserai mosque annex, its curvature so gradual that from a distance camels mistake it for a dune turning shy. Hook begins softly. Imagine stepping onto a dome before sunrise, when sky and glaze nearly share the same shade of indigo, so you cannot quite tell where heaven ends and architecture begins. That moment lingers, coaxing eyelids lower, because nothing demands sharp focus here only, the gentle arithmetic of brushstrokes. Polishers climb using rope ladders woven from mulberry bark strands that were soaked for 30 lunar cycles, pounded flat, and twisted into cords the color of afternoon dust. Once atop, polishers tie safety sashes around waist loops anchored to iron rings hammered into mortar centuries back. Cleaning mixture sits in copper basins hauled by pulley the night before. Strokes follow pattern. Starting at eastern crown, they draw cloth downward in slow arcs, resembling quarter moons stacked. Below, camel handler warms milk. Steam curls upward, touches dome base, condenses to micro droplets, leaving faint rings on glaze. Sun begins teasing horizon, painting faint gold stripe. Polishers quicken, but only by fraction. They want finishing stroke to coincide with first direct light. Now rinsing stage. Copper kettle with narrow spout pours trickle over cleaned band. Cleanup begins. Cloth pad sprung over basin, mixture dark now. In courtyard, tea steward offers cups. Polishers drink in silence, tasting faint copper from kettle, but mostly enjoying warmth. Centuries hence, conservation architects examine glaze under microscope, find trace tannin layered in early morning bands, deduce cleaning rituals timed with tea waste. So now, as your room lies half-lit by whichever lamp shows mercy, imagine climbing a tile dune that doesn't shift, wiping dews at arcs while tea steam below drifts like quiet incense. If a caravan could be said to breathe, then its slow exhale would surely smell of cinnamon, pepper, and the faint smoke of juniper wood curling beneath a row of terracotta jars. Felt muffles jar clinks, but more importantly, it remembers one's knees kindly. The headkeeper, Shirin, surveys her domain. 36 jars arrayed in 2 orderly curves. The inner curve destined for immediate market at Samarkand, the outer for replenishing the storeroom. Bahram unties not always, reef knot, never granny, and slips linen cap aside. Sharon lifts cap, lifts 3 curled quills using silver tongs shaped like delicate antelope horns. She presses thumb into quill center. If quill cracks with dry snaps, still aromatic, tonight it offers hushed crumble acceptable. Dust pattern forms tiny mound. She pinches dust, rubs between fingers for oil feel, risk of settling, prompt stirring. A jade spoon, bowl broad as thumbprint, stirs powder gently from bottom up in spirals. Spiral count always prime number. Tonight choose 11 because Shirin likes echo of twin ones. After swirling, they lightly tap jar on felt to remove air pockets, something they call dust sleep. Bahram adds doodle of small tent under crescent means goods ready for journey. They will weigh ancient peppercorns, discover weight curve below expected, deduce shrink rate, publish graphs. Yet they will miss bone 2 gauge, linen ribbon colors, and hush of quartermasters humming quiet scales, so wax cools evenly. Shirin signs with palm leaf flourish, then sprinkles ledger page margin with fraction of mace dust, so page will carry faint spice perfume to archivists. Let each breath inhale cinnamon sap, exhale nutmeg resin, until your dreams seal themselves under palm leaf stamp, and wait, unshaken, for dawn. Tap exactly thrice. Perform again after cap, replace to test seal. It feels less greasy than last moon, so she drops half acorn of almond oil into jar. Shakes jar slowly 9 times clockwise, 9 counter. 1 turn equals quarter watch. The quartermasters complete entire check in 2 turns, but hourglass flips thrice anyway. First turn to time humidity read. Second to pace weight checks. Third, because tradition says spices rest better if last grain falls after final wax sets. Baram flips 3rd time, whispers to seeds. Dream inside. Not superstition, just courtesy. Ledger note. NM jar 1 almond half. They place spent nutmeg on top as memory token. Color difference reveals which are sample victims. She touches rim of jar. Slight film of dust collects on fingertip. Smelling of sesame from cook fire. She wipes rim with cloth soaked in diluted tea from episode 2, allowing tannin to chase oil. Cloth folded 8 times to prevent leaving fiber. She dabs rim dry with linen corner and replaces cap, turning so frayed edge aligns with jar seam. This helps orientation record. This orientation ensures breezes from courtyard door never catch under ribbon tails. They verify direction by placing feather on jar top. Feather must lean south at dawn, indicating night draft as expected. Feathers pre-selected from pigeon roost above dome. Longest central shaft clipped to avoid flight illusions. They angle feathers now. 2 lean uncertain, replaced. Peppercorns inside appear glossy. He scoops exactly 20 into a shallow brass cup, whose handle ends in a miniature lion head. He drips droplet onto ribbon knot. Wax circle must spread to size of lentil, memoir. They judge by placing lentil seed beside hot seal. If seal dwarfs seed, unacceptable, as thicker wax might flake in transit and denote tampering. Tonight, first droplet nearly pomegranate seed big. Sharon blows softly before wax sets, coaxing shrink. Droplet obeys, seeping outward, then contracting. She presses stamp carved from peach pit into soft wax, a stylized palm leaf. Seal full and 3 heartbeats. They lug sin seal until shorthand for cinnamon seal lentil perfect. The scale is a travel kind, a bronze beam suspended from folded wooden stand hammered into earth. Counterweights here are copper acorns, each acorn the weight of 5 peppercorns when pepper is boned to humidity. Baram adds acorns 1 by 1. 19 peppercorns balance 4 acorns, but the 20th tip scales slightly downward, signaling corn shrink. No panic. Sharon notes pepper loss whisper worth. They pour sample back, stir with cedar spoon to air kernels, then tighten linen cap again, ensuring ribbon knot loops over jar handles so jar's own weight tension seal. Each jar sports a linen lid cap bound by silk ribbon whose color indicates contents. Persimmon for cinnamon, olive for cumin, deep indigo for pepper, and a pink so unreliable it looks beige by lamplight for nutmeg. Ribbon colors do not matter much once the lids vanish under dust, yet the ledger demands their notation, so they endure. These jars each no taller than a merchant's forearm and not much wider than a camel. Snee carry the lifeblood of trade. Spices ground so fine the desert wind must beg permission before moving a single mote. The hygrometer portion is a sliver of cuttlefish bone glued to copper foil. As air dampens, bone warps by amounts scientists centuries later will measure in microns. But for Sharon, the change is as plain as morning bread. She places the box on the felt, watches bone edge creep toward engraved number 2 of a 5-part scale. 1 is brittle, 5 is cloying. 2 tells her spices may have inhaled a sigh of evening dew, but not enough to clump. She murmurs bone sings too, and her apprentice, Burhan, writes the phrase in the top left of parchment sheet, curling letters into sleepy loops. Yet nobody sees the hours of fuss required to keep those motes docile, scented, and appropriately documented. Tonight, our fifth deliberately uneventful layover along the Great Silk Road. We nestle beside the spice quartermasters as they test clove brittleness with thumbnail presses, compare peppercorn weights against copper acorns and drip scarlet wax rings, so thin they resemble whispers frozen in midair. No suspense, no haggling, only the mild arithmetic of aroma shaped into sleep-ready paragraphs. By the time the official night watch sounds his reed whistle, the quartermasters have already unrolled their felt runners across the caravansary veranda. First comes humidity reading. Sharon carries a small cedar box holding an odd composite instrument, half compass, half hygrometer. Next, they weigh pepper. Peppercorn jar sits third from left, its indigo ribbon faded by sand but secure. Now cinnamon. The persimmon ribbon has frayed edge, but fray recorded earlier. New tonight is subtle split along lid hem where coarse grain might sneak. Wax sealing begins. Baram lights a sliver of beeswax dyed crimson with madder root. Flame licks wax until droplet forms at tip of stick. Nutmeg assessment employs wooden rasp used only at night. Jar with pink turned beige ribbon yields several whole nutmegs. Sharon selects one, rasps 3 strokes onto black plate. Common jar, olive ribbon, holds powder strand rather than seeds. Throughout, a brass hourglass trickles fine quartz tinted with saffron from episode 1. Finally, they align jars for morning, inner curve rotated so each ribbon knot points due north. Outer curve due east. Ledger summary. Humidity bone 2. Peppercorn shrink whisper. Cinnamon seal lentil. Nutmeg almond half. Come and dust sleep. Archivists someday will indeed smell faint mace when unwrapping brittle parchment. They will wonder which spice spilled, not realizing dust added intentionally as signature. So as your own night settles like fine cumin powder across a calm mind, imagine tasting bone 2 desert air through cuttlefish hygrometer, weighing peppercorns on copper acorns, and sealing ribbons with lentil-sized whispers of red wax. Somewhere between the hush of polished domes and the shy chime of copper durhams, another craft wakes at the caravan's edge. The leather menders whose needles glitter like sleepy fireflies before fading again into candle shadow. Their workshop is nothing more than a canvas lean to propped against a sun-baked wall. Yet within that triangle of lamplit dust, saddlebags find second lives. Camel girths regain their slow confidence, and the caravan's whole idea of forward motion earns its quiet passport. Tonight, our 7th unhurried mile on this drowsy silk road, we rest on a stack of half-mended pack pads, counting stitch tension in sesame seed increments, breathing along with the rhythm of all push exhale, and finally learning why. Beeswax smells faintly of cardamom when pressed into goat gut thread. No gallop, no flourish, just the lazy embroidery of distance sewn into hide. The lean-to's roof cloth once sheltered pomegranates. Stains from galaxies across its underside. 2 lanterns hang from cedar pegs hammered into crumbly mortar. Each lantern filled with clarified mutton tallow perfumed by a single clove. The clove scent masks lingering whiff of rawhide and keeps needle eyes polite enough not to rust overnight. Lantern glass clouded by previous vision softens light into amber pools, where needles gleam only at certain angles friendly photons. Never harsh lead mender, Fatima, begins by laying out the night's patience. 4 saddlebags, 2 cloak straps, 1 camel nose bag with mysterious tears shaped like a shy crescent. She arranges them on felt blanket, following rule of descending burden heaviest leftmost, so wrist tiring declines along schedule. Apprentice Kareem flips an hourglass containing pulverized alabaster tinted lilac. 1 inversion equals roughly 300 heartbeats in this altitude's chill. They will invert thrice before pausing for Tea Steward's sleepless brew. Ledger dating back to episode 2 now holds column lilac flips per night. The average sits at 2.9 tonight, will likely join majority dot hook into dream begin softly. Picture a needle entering leather so slowly the puncture seems to debate its purpose, then changing its mind and making only the smallest, nearly apologetic doorway. That micro doorway, repeated thousands of times, becomes the difference between burden that bruises and burden that agrees to be carried. Fatima selects first bag. Its leather once moves soft cowhide, but sun has crisped the flap edges into color she calls desert toast. She measures tier length using a strip of reed cut to standard thumb to knuckle unit called a reed span. Tier equals 3 spans minus a barley whisker Kareem, notes 3 shorthand accepted. Next, Fatima trims tier edges using half-moon blades sharpened against river pebble infused with goose fat. The cut releases faint smell of old cumin, spices store memory. She softens margins with drip mix, 2 parts warm water, 1 part leftover. Camel milk, drop of almond oil. She waits until mixture gloops like slow honey, dabs along tier with goat hair brush. Edges darken, relax. Ready. Thread comes from goat intestine, cured last quarter moon, and rubbed with beeswax block dusted in. Ground cardamom. The spice sticks to wax, scenting thread. Legend says camels step steadier when packs smell faintly festive. Thread thickness measured by passing through brass ring. If thread slides with whisper, good. If ring sings tiny chirp, thread too fat. Tonight chirp faint. Fatima pulls thread through linen to shave wax until chirp gone. Needles lie inside walnut. Box lined with felt. Each brass needle has number etched near eye. Number reflects eye width. Odd numbers for thick hide, even for suede. She chooses number 7, slightly stout. Before stitching, she warms needle tip by touching lantern chimney heat. Glides through brass, easing first puncture. She grips bone awl carved from sheep femur, twists point into leather along chalk dots marking future holes. Dot spacing exactly 1 sesame seed apart. Kareem places seeds along edge, then uses crow feather to pinch them away. Leaving ghost pattern. Stitch style. Herring sleep. Thread enters front, exits back. Returns front half step ahead, forming lazy zigzag hugging stress line. Fatima stitches while inhaling. On exhale, she tugs, setting tension. With every third tension tug, she whispers, Hafa, meaningless comfort syllable. Kareem marks each Hafa by sliding copper bead along cord looped on ankle. When bead completes loop, it clinks sandal. That small sound prompts Fatima to pinch thread between index finger and thumb, redistributing wax downward. Thus wax evenly coats new portion. Ledger will later record bead loop twice, translating to 6 Hafa groups tonight dot at final stitch. She reverses through last 3 holes, blocks with double half hitch, snips leaving tail length width. Of date stone, tail burned with mini ember to prevent fray. Ember snuffed in sand cup labeled quiet coals. She rubs seam with mixture of tallow and azurite dust, giving faint blue sheen, marking repair date code known only to menders, a language of scuffs. Hourglass lilac grain spills second time. Tea steward arrives offering thimbleful of near lukewarm. Brew, they sip, warming fingers. Fatima rotates wrists 7 times clockwise, 5 counter to keep joints fluid. Kareem inks ledger line. Espa 3 toast flap mended herring sleep. Wax cardamom faint, Hafa 6. The line slants gently as handwriting intentionally casual, so merchants later glance and accept without translating. Second patient. Cloak strap, simpler. Leather loop that holds clasp cracked near rivet. She removes brass rivet by pressing from backside with stub awl. Rivet drop sound recorded. Should that not ping? Ping means metal too brittle for reuse. Tonight, perfect thud. Rivet kept, cleaned. With vinegar droplet, dried, oiled. New strap cut from goat belly scrap. Thickness measured by passing ruler between palm lines. Should align with lifeline start. She trims, pierces holes, using rotary punch wheel borrowed from coin testers earlier. Wheel teeth 1 millimeter. She chooses tooth number 3 for soft hold. Stitch this time ladder style, rung spacing sesame and a half. Once done, rivet replaced, peened with ivory mallet. Sound toque soft. Kareem writes cloak loop fixed, rivet toque soft. Final. Patient, camel, nosebag tier, shaped like crescent. Interesting because tier edges fuzzy, likely goat nibble. Fatima reinforces underside with suede patch cut heart. Shape not decorative, only spreads stress. She glues patch using hide glue warmed in copper spoon over lantern. Smells sweet, reminiscent of old bookstores. She presses patch under smooth river stone wrapped in muslin. Wait left until dawn. No stitches down. Glue alone will do with camel. Gentle eater. Ledger, nosebag patch glue book scent. Dawn remove stone. Needles wiped with cloth infused with pine resin, slid back into box in descending order. Bone all points dipped in oil. Beeswax block rewrapped in linen. Sesame seeds collected, thrown to sparrow roost. Each seed eaten before sunrise, they say equates to mile without mishap. Sparrows seldom late. Lilac glass empties third time. Fatima inverts but closes session. She and Kareem fold felt runner, place finish the saddlebag at top so merchant sees first. They sit quietly, watch lantern. Flame shorten as oil lowers. Flame curls shapes like tiny camel humps. They listen. Distant domes reflect faint call to prayer, but hear only leather cooling, threads settling, and the soft grunt of camel dreaming of lighter loads. Centuries later, museum curators note sesame seed. Stitch spacing along surviving pannier strap. They speculate decorative, but uniform, never guess measurement tool was literal seed. They test beeswax residue, find cardamom phenols, publish article connecting spice trade to gear maintenance. Footnote wonders about faint blue sheen on seams, missing its code for date dot, so as your own muscles knit themselves into restful patterns, imagine leather edges moistening with almond milk, stitches nesting like herring asleep, and ashes in quiet. Cup extinguishing last ember of worry. Let breaths follow half a rhythm, in and out, stitch, stitch, tug until tail snipped, wax smoothed, and seam fades into silent promise of many gentle miles ahead. By the time most travelers have rolled their carpets and debated whether to risk another fig cookie before the march, a quieter circle gathers near the caravanserai treasury alcove people who regard metal not as treasure but as temperament. They are the coin testers, guardians of clink and clunk, intent on ensuring every silver dirham and copper falls sings exactly the right dull lullaby when dropped from thumb height onto a cedar plank rubbed smooth by decades of such music. Tonight, our 6th drowsy waypoint along the silk-frayed road, we settle on a low bench padded with a date palm mat. Watching these testers weigh grumbles in grams, compare patina tones against moonlit parchment swatches, and time the final wobble of each coin by the slow pulse in their wrists. Nothing heroic, nothing illegal, just the minute mechanics of money behaving politely enough to permit, eventually, the purchase of another pot of sleep fig tea, a soft hook first. Imagine hearing a coin land so gently it feels less like metal striking wood and more like someone placing a period at the end of a whispered sentence. That nearly sounds the pace for all things in this alcove. The treasury alcove itself hides behind a walnut door, painted lapis decades ago. The paint has cracked into patterns resembling lazy irrigation canals. Testers trace these cracks absent-mindedly while waiting for scales to zero. 2 hanging lamps burn walnut oil mixed with a shaving of ambergris, giving flame a perfume, faint as a nearly forgotten dream. Lamps sway slightly each time a door across courtyard closes, and testers glance up, deciding whether breeze strong enough to warrant shifting the scale weights inward to avoid draft tilt. Tonight breeze minimal, chain links hardly twitch. Note and ledger, Lamp sway 2 hairs. Ignore. Our chief tester, an elderly man called Yusuf, begins with silver Durham struck in Bukhara last spring. A canvas pouch marked with 3 charcoal dots yields 40 coins. Each coin first visits the copper caliper, a C-shaped tool with arms ending in camel ivory tips. Caliper gap fixed at 23 grains wide, the tolerance sweet spot. Yusuf slips coin into gap. If coin slides through, it's thin. If gap resists, coin thick. 38 slide perfect, 2 hesitate. Those 2 travel to second desk for filing and remarking. Ledger line, dirham batch, OR7, too thick. OR stands for olive ribbon, referencing earlier spice ribbon code. Cross-discipline shorthand comfort scribes dot next test ring. Yusuf balances cedar plank on goat horn fulcrum. He lifts coin to height of his thumb knuckle, exactly 9 barley grains above surface, and lets it fall. The sound profile should be mid-tone ka, followed by rapid damp. Too bright a ring betrays excessive copper. 2 dull signals lead. An apprentice named Dilshad crouches with beeswax tipped reed, noting vibration by touching plank edge. Wax picks up resonance, transmitting faint hum into reed. Dilshad's ear pressed near reed end. He decides ring quality. Tonight, 35. Coins hung correct. 3 Brayton, 2 dull. Scribe enters cut a 3. KUH-colon 2 dot double quotes. Bright coins will face abrasions to remove copper-rich surface. Dull coins may become change for camel fodder vendor less picky. Patna inspection follows. Yusuf unfolds parchment fan coated with graded streaks of oxidized silver made via vinegar fuming. Each streak labeled from cloud whisper, light, to twilight bruise, dark. Under lamp, he slides coin edgewise along fan until shade. Matches. Acceptable range lies between 2nd and 4th streak. Coins darker show possible forgery via sulfur smoke aging. Lighter reveal over-polished surfaces. Today 1 coin reads cloud whisper half, too pale. He rubs coin between. Linen lines impregnated with salt solution. Mild tarnished blossoms, now 3rd streak, except weight measurement possibly most hypnotic. Scale is double pan beam balanced on agate pivot. Reference masses are tiny bronze cubes, each face etched with increments of 1/8 mythcall. Bronze tarnish kept at bay by resting cubes nightly on bed of lime powder. Dilshad drops 1 cube into pan, then coin into opposite. Beam wavers. He adds sliver weight shaved from prior cube, slivers stored in lambskin pouch. Beam still leans. He plucks grain of rice, places atop coinal trick for micro-adjust. Beam balances. He removes rice, coin fails, so he adds half-grain fragment. Perfect. Scribe converts cube plus sliver plus fragment into numeric weight. Scribbles 2.78 grams plus rice frag, the latter shorthand for minimal positive offset. Ledger tolerance plus or minus 0.03 grams, so coin lives. Counterfeit check uses nitric test seldom needed. From wooden drawer, Yusuf extracts glass pipette, drips 1 drop onto coin edge filed earlier. Acid fizzes if base metal hides. Tonight no fizz content sieve silver meeting acid politely. He rinses coin in bowl of water sprinkled with rose petals to neutralize acid, leaving faint scent merchants later enjoy unknowingly. Copper falls coins follow similar routine but on smaller plank producing tuck not ka. Threshold vibrations, slower. Dilshad counts wobble waves on wax read acceptable 3. Tonight average 3.1, ledger remarks, plus 0.1 desert chill. They attribute slower damping to cooler wood. Nothing further. Sealing accepted coins into rolls end session. Rolls made of papyrus strip coated with rice glue. Strip length 18 finger widths. Wrap coins long ways, overlapping exactly 3 widths. Outer layers stamped with treasury seal carved from apricot wood, inked in charcoal gum. Stamp hit strip with muted thwip. Seal center features owl perched on star. Edges blur after many uses, but testers keep owl sharp by sanding stamp face. Monthly, owl receives tonight's press crisp. Scribe doodled small star to remark Christmas. Waste filings from thick Durhams swept into ivory mortar, destined to melt into new blanks later. Rice fragments and mustard seeds from Bell's share trash. Jar mix trivia of caravan life. Ledger closes with summary. Silver 40/40ths pass after adjust. Copper 52 55ths pass. Owl crisp, lamp sway hair too. Yusuf ties ledger with silk cord, dyed leftover indigo from pepper ribbon, places under cedar weight shaped like half moon. Work. Indid.future numismatists will examine weight slivers, find rice starch residue, puzzle at why grains present. Papers propose anti-static trick, missing weight fine-tuning. They will chemically map patent a streak fan, concluding early QC chart, yet remain unaware of cloud whisper poetic scale guiding late-night testers' dots so as your eyes coin flip. Between open and shut, imagine Durham sliding through camel ivory calipers, cedar planks resonating soft as night pigeons, and bronze cubes quietly trading mass for sliver. Let each inhale weigh 1/8 mythical of calm, each exhale drop rice. Grain of tension, until beam of thoughts levels and Alciel stamp streams closed under indigo tie. Even after saddlebags find their new seams and tea kettles sigh their last crab-eye bubbles, there remains a softly overlooked orchestra playing at the very perimeter of the caravan world. The tent state counters, those mild souls who believe that a journey's true safety hides not in spear tips nor camel hooves, but in the unhurried geometry of canvas, cord, and tiny iron pegs sunk exactly 2 finger joints into forgiving soil. Tonight, our 8th cloudless stretch along the sleepy silk road, we pitch our imagination beside these counters, measuring rope fray and poppy seed fractions. Rotating mallet strikes to match the angle of distant constellations, and tallying the number of canvas islets that creak softly when greeted by dawn's first draft. No storms, no alarms, just the quiet partisan of gravity negotiating politely with cloth. Hook settles like breeze. Picture a tent that refuses to snap or billow, choosing instead to breathe at precisely the same pace as anyone sleeping beneath it. That synchronization rests entirely upon the patient arithmetic unfolding now. The workspace sits under half-completed sky. Counters prefer beginning when stars still outnumber lanterns because ropes reveal their tiny twine fibers best under. Cold starlight. Head counter named Zara unrolls her ledger matte-striped camel hair lined with goat hide onto sand, brushed smooth by branch of saltbush. She opens cedar chest painted with faded henna vines. From chest, she lifts bundles of rope, each wrapped around narrow walnut board engraved with tally marks. Board A shows 73 ticks, ideal for main pavilion. Board B lists a 64, urgent awning. Board C humbly sports 17, tier drop cook shelter. She flicks each rope coil. If coil whispers like sifting flour, fibers healthy. If coil thuds, moisture or sand clogged. Tonight coil A whispers warmly, coil B hushes, coil C coughs faint entry, K cough 1 scribbled. Rope material mixes. Camel hair outer with goat hair inner twist. Counters verify twist integrity by tugging sample length between thumb and forefinger until tension produces faint hum known as owl string. Hum duration timed using bronze timer shaped like almond shell filled with poppy seeds. Zara. Flips shell, listens as seeds trickle, counting heartbeats. Proper hum must last 5 seed trickles. Tonight rope, a hum 6 trickles over tight. She flicks rope to untwist quarter turn, retests. 5, ledger, a retune. Next, tent canvas inspection. Canvas squares stacked within oiled leather covers to keep dew at courteous distance. Zara removes central pavilion cloth dyed indigo. Left side, sandy beige, right two-tone, helps locate leading edge in dark. She slides 2 fingers along him until she meets tiny brass eyelet rings. Each eyelet must spin freely. She uses slender reed inserted through ring, giving quarter twirl. If ring squeals, she smears micro dab of tallow balm mixed with saffron water from earlier episodes. Balm jar carries miniature brush made of sparrow tail feathers. 1 brush stroke equals perfect film. She treats 7 rings. Ledger's shorthand. Indigo 7 saff balm. Stake selection feels oddly ritualistic. Iron stakes stored in burlap satchel parted via cloth dividers like gentle cutlery. Each stake top hammered into hook shape, reminiscent of fish mouth. Zara weighs stake by palm judge. Weight should match 3 almond shells. To confirm, she drops stake onto scale pan opposite 3 shells saved in silk pouch. Tonight 2 stakes. Lighter by hazel weight. She swaps with spares, marks initials on light stakes with charcoal. X reserved for awning corners where tension lower dot mallet emerges last. Head carved from apricot root. Handle cedar wrapped in strip of camel hide stitched. Herring sleep, apparently leather menders collaborated. Mallet head surface displays grid scratch to remind angle options. Northeast quadrant for first stake. Rotating clockwise successive stakes around compass rose. This ensures canvas bias aligns with prevailing gusts that sweep from step. Zara begins strike pattern, sets compass small brass disc with swallow motif points north. Positions first stake on rope as leading loop. Tilt stake 10 degrees away from center. Taps thrice. Toke soft, toke soft, toke soft. Each strike waited for heartbeat pause. Heartbeats counted by apprentice Omar, touching pulse at wrist. Ledger. Tokes off 1-3 complete. Second stake east-south. East gets 4 strikes due to soil slightly denser. Ledger notes. Toke firm +1. Soil density assessed earlier by copper probe inserted to finger joint depth. Tonight shows grit similar to toasted sesame. Good drainage dot rope tension measured by hanging small clay weight shaped like date pit halfway between stake and canvas eyelet. Zara plucks rope. If weight dances beyond 1 thumb width sideways, tension high. If weight size downward more than sesame height, tension slack. She adjusts knots accordingly. Knots are Bolin variants named after spices. Cinnamon loop, clove hitch, cardamom slip. Pavilion uses cinnamon loops tonight for symmetry with savory feast planned. She reties 2 loops that shivered under pluck. Ledger CL edge 2. All while, Omar rotates almond shell timer. 2 flips pass. He snaps shut ledger mat pen strap, signaling ties ready for canvas raising. Yet raising occurs at dawn. Now, they only preload memory. Zara leaves ropes splayed gently across sand. Stakes half depth. This preset, known as drowsy anchor, prevents ropes soak in dew yet invites minimal tension morning stretch. She sprinkles rope ends with mint dust to repel burrowing beetles partial to goat hair. Beetles seldom climb to bite, but counters. Cherished belt embraces calm dot and aside. Zara counts soft creaks of canvas as evening breeze nudges edges. She lugs 4 creaks within half watch. Threshold for restful flopping stands at 6. Above that suggests excess slack. She chooses not to tighten, leaving flaps rest like heavy eyelids. Suddenly, copper whistle from coin testers drifts over wall. Its pitch barely above silence, but triggers counters to cover ropes with linen squares, preventing lamplight sparks falling. Fire hazard ledger cross-referenced, whistle code S meaning safe. They snuff lantern. In near dark, they coil ledger mat, return cedar chest lid with loom soft thump, and exit canvas lean-to, walking heel-toe to avoid rope tangles. Archivist centuries hence will discover tent ropes alongside stakes and dried caravan debris. Note saffron-scented balm residue. Fine brass eyelets polished to improbable freedom. and wonder at camel hair plus goat hair twist acoustic quality referred to in fragment owl string 5 seeds. They will replicate rope, hold tension tests, and record hum time, inadvertently tuning themselves to the same sleepy frequency tonight. So, while your own mind pitches camp within comfort shadows, imagine felt ropes breathing along star rhythm. Lilac sand glass humming through pulses, and apricot root mallets tapping toke soft into forgiving soil. Wet breath sloop cinnamon style inhale bow. Exhale line until canvas of thoughts tautens just enough to hush flapping in night. Settles like mint dust over anchor loops, awaiting dawn's gentle tug. Long after tent stakes have whispered themselves 2 finger joints deep, and camels have swayed into straw-scented dreams, a faint glimmer still crawls across the courtyard stones, small wandering puddles of gold that belong to the lantern. Keepers, they are the quiet custodians of wick and flame, slipping between shadows with pots of oil balanced like sleepy planets, mindful that a single sputter in the night can awaken more stories than an entire caravan cares to carry come dawn. Tonight, our 9th calm furlong on this drowsy silk road, we stroll behind these keepers, counting cotton threads soaked in walnut oil, timing the tremble of glass chimneys as owl drafts stroll past, and noting why a drop of quince resin, no, bigger than a teardrop, decides whether flame stays shy amber or grows impertinent yellow. No alarm bells, no torchlit drama, only the slow arithmetic of lumens lulled into submission. First, a soft hook. Imagine slipping into a night so carefully illuminated that every lamp knows its own heartbeat and none dares beat louder than yours. Lantern's door is a low-roofed annex wedged between olive press and coin-custer's alcove. Its door, plum-colored once, now peels like dried rose petals. Inside racks crafted from elm branches hold 27 lanterns, each named after a constellatory animal. There is little antelope, drowsy carp, 2-striped jackal. Names, scratched into brass collars so faint you can mistake them for absent-minded fingerprints. Headkeeper, called Parvis, begins by lifting each lantern in sequence west rack first because westerly lamps finish oil sooner under prevailing drafts. He places them on cypress table lined with sand-filled trough. Should flame misbehave, sand snuffs revolt politely. Parvis opens first lantern Little Antelope by twisting knob that secures glass chimney. Chimney scent hints of cloves from lamp oil's earlier life near Spice Quartermasters. He inspects. Wick, woven from cotton threads dipped in salt water, then sun-dried to stiffen fiber. Wick edge forms crescent. If crescent droops, char must be trimmed. He uses tiny shear fashioned of stork beak and bronze hinge, snipping exactly width of sesame seed, a measurement popular by now. Trimming produces scrap char curling like comma. He drops comma into clay bowl half filled with sand scented by lavender soot absorbed from dome polisher's lanterns, keeping loop of caravan craft intact. Wick length must match the keeper's half almond rule. When pulled taut, exposed wick above holder equals length of almond sliced lengthwise. Parvis uses sliver of almond shell as gauge. He twists wool thread around wick base to secure, then dips finger in walnut oil jar, dobs drop on wick tip to prime feed. Walnut oil stored in ceramic jugs, glazed celadon inside to cushion acidity. JUGs labeled by moon phase of pressing. Tonight's batch waxing gibbous 4, mid-aroma, mid-viscosity, before relighting. He tests air funnel by puffing across chimney mouth. The puff should exit base vent whisper fast. He senses exit on wrist skin. Too weak means sit build inside. He wipes interior with cloth soaked in vinegar and ash mixture, swirling 3 clockwise circles. He counts circles quietly. 1 inhale, swirl. 1 exhale, swirl. Hold breath, swirl. Cloth leaves faint smudge on glaze. Ledger will note, Ala chimney swirl 3 mild. Lighting occurs via slender taper made from willow sliver wrapped in linen dipped in beeswax. Taper ignited from master lamp near doorway. This source remains lit all night, called Mother Flame. Mother Flame stands in larger lantern whose bronze is heat, blackened and glass thick like river ice. Parvez transfers flame, touches wick. Flame wakes small, almost embarrassed. He adjusts snob, so flame height reaches height of barley whisker beyond burner top any higher, eats oil greedily, and smokes. He lowers glass chimney gently, listening for click that sounds like cricket sigh. If click too sharp, chimney seated. Crooked. He jiggles bass until sigh tone dulls. Satisfied, he records LA flame barley whisker. Next lantern, drowsy carp. Shows wick frayed, uneven like river reed shredded. This fray invites flicker. He trims, discards extra segments. Decides wick length means refresh. He unscrews font, pulls wick spool, unwinds new length equal to 2.5 almond shells. He whispers fish breathe deep, mnemonic for this size. He threads spool back, screws tight, primes oil, restarts flame. Time taken for oil ascent through new wick, measured by counting heartbeats. Ideal under 19. Tonight oil surfaces at 17. Ledger DC Prime HB17. While Parvis works, apprentice Murnaz cleans glass chimneys recently retired. She sits cross-legged on reed mat dipped in camel urine water, antibacterial, faint, musky. She folds cloth segments, each half the width of finger, moistens in soapberry solution, then inserts cloth into chimney using thin cane rod. Rod pushes cloth twisting spiral path. Cloth emerges steady replaced. She uses 4 cloths per chimney. 4th passes emerges pale. Ledger keeps count. Chimney's restful 4 cloth. Between lanterns, they check oil jars inventory. Jars rest on shelf at waist height. Each jar uses cork stoppers sealed with bee resin. Resin plug color changes over months. Pale gold first, amber later. Parvis taps stopper. If it rebounds, gummy, sail fine. If brittle, time to melt new resin. Tonight, stopper of jar 3 cracks. He melts beeswax with pinch of myrrh over tiny cold brazier, pours into crevice, covers with linen patch. He inks jar neck, resin M&M, denoting myrrh batch, providing faint incense when melted again. Every 4th lantern, they rotate wick orientation by quarter turn to prevent channel groove. Orientation logged by referencing compass sketch. On brick wall, arrow marks wick flat side. Tonight wicks C and G rotate. Chalk arrow shifted. Murnaz draws new arrow and faded pink chalk left over from nutmeg labels. After all lamps trimmed and lit, 23 tonight, 4 left unlit for storeroom corners. The keepers begin courtyard run. They carry lanterns and woven willow carriers, shaped like small cradles, edges padded with felt circles from saddlebag scraps. Each lantern hung onto iron hooks hammered into columns, exactly 2 cubits above floor height chosen century ago to align average head height of trader seated. On cushion, hence preventing glare in eyes, but lighting account scrolls nicely. They test placement flicker, stand back, clap hands softly. Lantern should bob once then settle. If sway cycles exceed 3, rope loops on bracket require tightening. Drowsy carp sways 4 cycles. Parvis adds twist of jute twine behind hook, reducing play. Ledger DC sway forward 2. He also smells for smoke. Walnut oil rarely smokes, but if wick char too high, hints appear. Little antelope issues micro plume. He pinches knob quarter anti-clockwise. Plume gone. Finally, they perform lumen drift test. Murnaz holds polished copper disc at arm's length. Angle 45 degrees to flame. Counts number of star reflections visible. If reflections equal 3 clear, brightness good. They measure a random sample. Drowsy carp shows 2 and fuzzy, but adequate since corridor wall lighter color. No adjust. Hour deepens. They douse Mother Flame only at sunrise. Until then, they sit on stone bench, reading ledger by lamp glow, making sure words not too bright to strain. They sip leftover tea, swirling leaves, letting charcoaled liquid reflect flames like twin constellations. Before sleep, Myrna's sprinkles. Pinch of ground quince seed beneath each lamppost. Tradition says quince pacifies restless shadows. Centuries later, archaeologists will find brass chimneys dark inside but pleasantly aromatic. Chemical analysis reveals quince phenolics mixed with walnut fatty acids, perplexing leadership until cross-reference with scribal fragment quince calm gloom. Papers appear in Journal of Lighting History. Footnotes marvel at barley whisker flame height precision dot, so as your own eyelids hover somewhere between glow and gutter, imagine walnut oil flame trimmed to barley thickness glass chimneys, crooning cricket's eyes and quince resin hushed against iron hooks. Let your breaths flicker, but not flare inhale to barley, exhale to ember, until your inner lamps align with drowsy carb hum and night sinks into soft pools of gold, persuading every thought to whisper sleep. Even when lantern keepers have pinched their final barley whisker flames and stitched the courtyard shadows neatly shut, a softer ministry still breathes beneath the caravan's canvas roofs. The dew ration measurers, small-voiced alchemists, who believe that every journey's fortune depends upon the difference between one drop of water and the next. They do not haul barrels nor heave skins. Instead, they crouch beside clay amphorae, coaxing beads of condensation one by one into reed pipettes whose tips resemble tiny sparrow beaks. Tonight, our 10th feather light footfall along the drowsy silk road, we kneel beside their quiet arithmetic, counting droplets that glint like lost constellations, calibrating pipette volumes by lunar reflection, and confirming why a breath held too long can shift an entire caravan's thirst ledger by the width of a fingernail moon. No parched cries, no mirage panic, only the patient ceremony of water agreeing to be shared. Before any hook whispers, picture a single drop resting at the rim of a clay jar, unsure whether to fall in or flee skyward again. Then imagine someone gently persuading it that falling would be a kindness. Water doctrine begins at dusk when air finally sighs after desert heat. The amphorae, squat as drowsy tortoises, stand in a ring on stone slabs that have been shaded all afternoon. Thermal rule. Stone must feel cooler than a palm fresh from teacup, yet warmer than pre-dawn sand. Lead measurer, Layla, tests stone by pressing wrist against it for count of 4 heartbeats. If skin tingles faintly cool at beat 3, slab. Declared dew friendly. Tonight tingles exactly at 3. Ledger opens with line slab temp DF. Amphorae exteriors rubbed earlier with goat milk wash. The milk fat encouraged micro bead formation as night air cools. Lala inspects each jar surface under lamplight borrowed briefly from lantern keeper's glass removed, so flame stands naked. This raw flame reveals droplets by sparkling uncurved clay like faint stars. She angles jar, noting bead density, ideally 9 beads within hand-width patch. She counts 8 on jar A, 10 on B, and for jar C finds stubborn 6. She softly exhales onto surface, breath adding moisture, waits, recounts now 9 ledger, jar C coaxed. Pipettes rest in cedar, box lined with wolf love to prevent jostle. Each pipette is hollow reed segment, ends hardened by dipping in beeswax, then slicing angle. Capacity encoded by burn rings. 1 ring for quarter dram, 2 for half, 3 for full dram. Drams here refer to caravan standard, volume of water droplet falling from pipette tip within 4 heartbeats. Reed walls thin. Any fissure appears as darker line under lamplight. Assistant Rustum examines pipettes, turning slowly. Fissured ones retire to box lid to become flute whistles for children at next oasis. Tonight too show hairline. Ledger marks retire list. Calibration ritual uses shallow bronze saucer filled with water from mother jar, the only jar permitted to store drawn well water. Wella dips pipette, fills by capillary rise until burn mark equals meniscus at bevel. She seals top with foam, lifts, then releases droplet onto saucer, counting beats until droplet leaves tip. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. She repeats for each pipette. One pipette releases at 3 beats. She suspects lumen slightly wide. She warms wax above tapering, squeezes gently, narrows aperture, retests 4 beats. She whispers, "Good night, read," to signal satisfaction. Now. Harvesting. They tilt amphora gently until beads roll to lower edge. With pipette tip, Lila touches bead. Bead crawls along reed via adhesion. She draws minimal suction by placing lips near top, but not sealing inhale like smelling rose. Droplet slides inside. She caps pipette top with fingertip carrying trace beeswax to form seal. Each pipette, once filled, slides into clay rack whose slots carved to cradle reeds away from each other, preventing accidental warmth transfer. 12 pipettes fill from each jar. Counts vary with humidity. Tonight total 36 filled drams. Distribution list waits on palm leaf parchment palms for guards, camel drivers, musicians, ice crew, dome polishers, etc. Standard. Ration before dawn, 1/2 dram per throat, but dome polishers require quarter extra due to height exertion, while leather menders request quarter less to preserve silence. Rustem consults lists, matches pipette capacity rings. He writes initials on wax tablet. DP dome polishers get 2 pipettes quarter dram plus 1 pipette quarter. LM leather menders receive single 1/2 dram instead of standard. Balance remains reserved for camel nostril rinse. Yes, camels appreciate. Occasional dew flush, removing dust dot before delivering. They test water warmth. Dew beads cooler than jar interior. Sudden cold sip can jolt camel driver from dream too briskly. They hold the pet cluster in palms until reed warms to skin. Count breaths 5 inhalations. They tilt reed. Drop emerges onto tongue to assure no clay tint. Dew tastes neutral tonight. Good sign of clean air. Morning route follows hush path. Between tents. Lila carries pipettes in willow tray covered by linen scarf. Tray rests level on elbow. She stops at each sleeper, uncaps reed, lets drop slide onto sleeping individual's tongue by touching lower lip. Reflex swallow occurs, hardly wakes them. Some smile mid-sleep. Ledger later notes, guard 2 smiled, sis. If drop misses, falls onto chin. Second pipette offered, but ledger marks spill, plus scribble of droplet like teardrop. They will adjust count future nights. Camel dew rinse at end. Rustem mixes remaining drams with 1 dram well water. Pours into tiny. Copper sprinkler. He mists each camel nostril. Animals snort, expelling dust. If mist droplet count per nostril 3. Ledger records, light mist, else good flush. Tonight 2 camels, good flush, 1 light. He notes will add next dawn. Cleaning tools, pipettes rinsed in rosewater basin, set to dry inside perforated gourd pumice lined to absorb moisture. Wool fluff inside cedar box replaced monthly. Fluff tonight still fragrant. Bronze saucer wiped with linen, drop left to evaporate forms salt ring. They scratch ring for taste confirmed sweetness level tiny. Chart and head, satisfied. Hourly summary. Beads coaxed. 1. Pipettes retired. 2. Total drams delivered. 34. Spill. 1. She sketches small moon fading into sun, representing upcoming dawn. Ledger flap closed. Centuries ahead. Hydrologists study amphora clay shards. Find goat milk fat residue. Interpret as primitive insulation. They discover reed fragments, calculate. Dram volumes, publish micro-ration dew systems in trans-Eurasian trade. Footnotes misidentify beeswax cardamom seal as mere scented ornament. yet capture essence that caravans trusted droplets more than cisternfloods dot. So, as your own thoughts condense gently upon quiet surfaces of evening, imagine tip of reed retrieving, bead of sky, lips guiding droplet along 4-beat journey, and ledgers marking smile fractions next to spill doodles. Let breaths count 1, 2, 3, 4 like patient droplet release, until your inner amphora fills with calm and dew forgets. Daylight ever demanded anything more than a kind fall. When a caravan finally folds its maps, when the last ledger page receives its sleepy sigil, and even the camel bells have traded their piptug rhythm for the hush of stable straw, one order of business remains so delicate that most travelers never discover it. The quill quieters, caretakers of every reed, feather, and bone stylus that has scratched its gentle arithmetic across our journey. Without their closing ritual, ink might thicken into stubborn tar, parchment corners might curl into grumbles, and tomorrow's stories would wake to find their voices rasped shut. Tonight our 11th and farewell glide along this unhurried Silk Road. We sit beside these keepers of sentence endings, counting feather barbs, polishing bronze nibs with rose petal soot, and placing quills to sleep in cedar cradles dusted with lavender ash. No abrupt full stops, only ellipses breath gently into the night. Soft hook settles. Imagine a quill so content. Its last drop of ink sighs into blotting paper like a cat settling atop warm stone. The quill house is a narrow, annex adjoining the scribe's gallery. Its door bears no lock, only a curtain beaded with kill-fired clay discs. Each disc dulls sound. When curtain parts, beads click like distant rainfall, alerting keepers that instruments approach. Lead quieter Farzana gathers quills in batches earlier collected from coin testers, lantern scribes, tent counters, dome polishers, every trade that borrowed sentences tonight. She lays them upon a felt runner decorated with stitch shapes of vowels, though few notice letters at this hour. Stage 1 ink detox. Bronze inkwells are half full. Farzana decants leftover ink into ebony bowl carved with spiral measuring grooves. She lifts each quill, grips feather shaft, and taps nib on bowl rim twice, coaxing clinging ink into groove. Tap sound should be tick hush, not tick ring. Ring warns brass, nib cracked. Tonight one tester quill rings brittle. She sets aside for repair, marking ledger, B-nib microsplit. For reed quills, tap yields softer thud. If droplet remains, she wicks with linen square dampened in vinegar water. Vinegar evaporates quickly, safeguarding reed. Stage 2, warm bath. She fills shallow copper tray with tepid water scented with single drop of rosemary oil enough to whisper, not shout. Nibs did 10 heartbeats. No more, else reed fibers swell. She withdraws quills, weighs them on linen, pressing gently to blot. Apprentice Mima counts heartbeats by silently mouthing numbers since to wrist pulse. Ledger entries display numeral encircled by small wave mark. Tonight all 10 tilde. Stage 3, grit polish. Farzana mixes fine pumice dust with rose petal, soot gathered from lantern chimneys earlier. She dips cotton bud, strokes nib underside thrice always toward tip, never backward. This polishes microburrs so nib glides tomorrow. She inspects under oil lamp magnifier, a small crystal lens fitted into wooden frame. She angles lens until nib tip gleams like miniature crescent moon. One quill shows stubborn burr. She polishes extra pass, ledger, extra crescent, stage 4, beeswax balm. From lidded porcelain pot, she cues wax blended with trace cardamom, familiar smell. She rolls nib across wax surface once, no pressure, just kiss. Wax seals pores, preventing overnight oxidation. She twirls quill so feather vein catches lamp glow, a final bow, feather grooming next. She runs goosebone comb along vein, aligning barbs like tidy sleeping mats. Any stray barb trimmed with scissors whose blades etched with tiny owl courtesy coin testers. Trim lengths recorded by category. Primary flight versus secondaries. Tonight, 3 secondaries trimmed. Ledger marks S3. She fluffs feather end. With gentle breath. Plume relaxes. Stage 5, cradle placement. Wooden rack lined with cedar slats shaped into shallow grooves. Each groove contains lavender ash lightly tamped. Quills rest nib toward aisle, feather toward wall, angle 4 fingers down from horizontal. This tilt encourages residual ink drift away from nib. She places heavier brass ferrule quills on lower grooves to prevent overshadowing light reads. Overhead, she whispers quill names. Many carry nicknames from scribes. Moon Tick, Hazelsigh, Pilgrimage. Names appear nowhere but in memory. Last instrument, bone stylus of dome ledger, demands horn oil rub. She massages drop using cloth, watches bone drink sheen, then lays stylus in groove padded with wool twist instead of ash. Wool absorbs bone's cooler humidity. Quill repair bench now. Broken brass nib receives micro solder of tin silver alloy. Heated by coal ember from tea brazier. Farzana steadies hand with wooden rest, touches solder. Alloy flows where micro split gate. She quenches nib in water bowl, dries, polishes, rewaxes, returns to rack. Ledger, the nib okay, crescent faint. Inkstone cleaning. She pours warm water, brushes with boar hair bristle, pours out to copper basin labeled Ink Ghost. Ink Ghost water later used to tint garden soil, coaxing marigold color deeper so scribes claim curtain of clay beads. Rattles again last minute quote from guard note passes. She proceeds routine abbreviated detox, 5-beat dip, quick wax, cradle. Ledger footnote added arrow. Ledger summary penned by Nima. Quills 42. Reed 29, brass 11, bone 2. Trims S3. Repairs 1, names whispered. He sketches tiny cedar tree symbol meaning rack closed. Farzana dot symbol with lapis ink. Seals ledger with lentil-sized wax recalling cinnamon menders. They extinguish lamp using brass cap shaped like pomegranate, leaving faint smoke coil. They place oil leftover into glazed jug for dawn restart. Clay bead curtain sways, beads slowly find rest. Room now holds hush so pure, even quills seem to inhale. Historians centuries hence will test quill residues. Find rosemary, cardamom, beeswax, puzzled why such culinary notes adorn writing tools. They will photograph cedar groove rack with lavender ash, suspect insect repellent aim, not lull conditioning. They'll detect crescent scratches on brass, surmise decorative, missed microburr removal path dot. So, as our chronicles slip feather first into cedar-scented dusk, imagine ink droplets tapping Tikesh into spiral grooves, pumice rose dust, smoothing nibs and lavender ash cradling wordless quills until tomorrow. Let your breaths drift along feather barbs, align, trim stray thoughts, wax edges of memory closed until you too lie 4 fingers downward in mind's cedar groove. Names whispered into quiet and dreams, signed off with 1 lentil-sized seal.